When I'm dreaming, I think it's true. When I'm dreaming of you, dreaming of you. Hope you dream of me too. When I'm playing, I'm having fun. I'm not staying 'cause I think I need to be on the run.
My name is Liz Chilson, and I'm the manager of exhibitions and collections here at the Elmhurst Art Museum. And I started just recently, so this is my first effort here at the museum, and I literally started the day we started to pick up work for this exhibition. So it's been like a swirl of activity and really exciting, an amazing team here at the museum that's worked together to put this together. So welcome. I'm very happy to welcome you here today for this panel discussion titled Music, Culture, Art, and Design. So the panel discussion will delve deeper into music, culture, and design influences, and it will be moderated by radio host, co-producer Ayana Contreras. Participants include designer Norman Teague, writer-director Sam Thousand, and musician-artist Chaz Sanders-La Pointe. And so just a word about Ayana. She is the host of the Reclaimed Soul program on WBEZ and at Vocalo Radio. She's the Chicago cultural historian, memory worker, radio DJ, archivist, and the author of Energy Never Dies, Afro-Optimism and Creativity in Chicago, which is an amazing book.
We got a commercial.
There are signed copies available in our store. If you haven't had a chance, it's a really beautiful book and really worth your perusing. And so I will just turn it over to Ayana. Thanks so much, and enjoy.
All right. Hi, everybody. Okay, so this is going to be really fun. We have a runner who's passing the mic. Is that right? Let me make sure I can see that person. Okay, perfect. Thank you. The first question that I wanted to ask, well, thank you everybody for making your way out here, whether you came 1 block or 100 miles or 1,000 miles. Welcome. Yeah. My first question is one that kind of was on your mind, but was also something we discussed yesterday. How has the evolution of jazz in Chicago, and this is for you, and you have some things to have Chaz. Actually, you want to do bios? I just thought about that because you said to me you did not want to do bios. And I feel like they kind of...
Bios are online, you can read that on your own.
I thought about it, like, I've done many of these sorts of talks, and we always do the rhythm of row, but you were like, let's get into it. Okay, all right. But no, the question was, how has the evolution of jazz in Chicago been intertwined with the historical experiences and contributions of the Black community? And the reason why I thought this question was such an interesting jumping off point, I write for Downbeat, which is actually based in Elmhurst. What on earth, right? Historical, it's been around over 75 years now. And I wrote a cover story a couple of years back talking about the equality in jazz and how jazz has this long history of being a part of progressive movements in the Black community, even though now a lot of people kind of think about it as dinner music or music of the conservatory and collegiate space. So, rooted in the community forming. Talk about that connection.
And I can only go into this. Thank you so much, Ayana. And thank you all for being here. Thank you, Elmhurst. Before I start, I just wanted to ask if each of you would mind just taking like 30 seconds to just introduce yourself to the person next to you. All right, you can get each other's number later. But I think my earliest memories of jazz as I grew up in Bronzeville as a probably 6, 7, 8-year-old. I can remember my first hustles would allow me to go to the grocery store and carry people's bags and groceries for a quarter at a time. These were times when I was probably first introduced to jazz as an outlet, but I was much too young to realize that there was a J-A-Z-Z attached to that. But I think that as a cultural being in my neighborhood, I felt like a genre like jazz probably moved my parents. I think about the radiance of outlets that we did have as jazz moments as I was a young person. My parents and uncles would frequent these types of places. I remember an uncle of mine playing a guitar, and things of these sort of touched me in a very young way, and allowed me to sort of focus as a growing boy and looking for ways to find silence to some extent. I feel like these were places that I would think about: jazz, blues. I think that's the earliest memories I could have. You guys probably can speak to that a little bit more. I guess I gotta run it over.
Yes, so I am a transplant from Houston, Texas. I've been in Chicago for, thank you. Respect. I've been in Chicago for about 15 years, and man, I've always been impressed with the talent of the scene in Chicago, and I feel like a lot of it comes from the passing on, the mentorship, the intergenerational gatherings, and also opportunities that allow for youth to come up in competition. I remember when Marquise Hill was a legend to me. I never met him before, and I would always hear his name, I would hear his music, and Luminaire Arts, I think that's what it is called, Luminaire. I may be slightly tweaking the name, but there was a competition for young jazz artists, to win this, a good amount of money, and also win some opportunity for resources for recording. And I was like, I'm gonna compete. I was jumping in. This is at the time I was a jazz studies major at Columbia College, playing trumpet in the jazz band. And lo and behold, I'm in line to audition, and Marquise Hill is after me. He's next. And I got a chance to meet him. But and I was very, man, I was just so enamored by his skill set, but just how cool he is as a human being. He's just so cool. And I feel like the vibe of the scene in Chicago, the jazz scene, and how open the spaces are for jams, and also for how great the support is for other artists in the scene. I think that it just has cultivated such a rich history, a rich scene for today that's built on the history that was brought. I know Marquise is very much a product of that. And so I want to just tell that story. He absolutely killed his aim on, it made sense. Yes, I think I'll leave it there.
So,
I'm younger. So like when I think about the word evolution and I think about jazz, like, and I'm younger, I think about that kind of like matrilineal, journey of jazz across, musical spectrums. So when jazz comes to my mind, the first thing I think about is electronic music. I think of house music. And I think of the enduring legacy that jazz has left on the city. It's in the pavement, it's everywhere. There's, going back to a time that I'm not even a part of, some of the earliest free jazz recordings were recorded here. Sun Rock played bebop here in Cal City, for like $10. People don't really know that, but we had Leo Dallas with the AAC, and there's a huge history of jazz music in Chicago that endures through other types of music. I think jazz has, since its birth from the blues, from the furnace that was the blues, has taken it has proved itself to have like infinite multiplicities, and they're evident today, not necessarily even in music, but in art and culture and its ability to integrate in between different worlds. In short, that's my answer.
I just had a memory, so I'm probably the oldest cat on this panel, so takes me a while. But, I actually was thinking back to these days when you could stroll into the Cotton Club, and I think of the Cotton Club because it was one of the more prestigious. Like you put on your best outfit to go to the Cotton Club, and it was.
Just to clarify, this isn't the one in New York, in fact, it's the one in Chicago.
But also, I remember the Velvet Lounge, which you walked in and there was this huge, I don't even know, it was a chandelier of some sort, but it sat right above the stage, but it was humongous. And I just remember these moments where there was an ease to find a jazz outlet on the south side of Chicago. And you could almost accidentally run into that. And I think those were moments where I was not quite the intellect for jazz yet, but I could understand that this was a special place and there were special things happening. And so that was just something I wanted to add.
It's so interesting because I guess probably I'm best known as a soul music expert, but I didn't come from a soul family. I came from a jazz family. We were jazz cats, you know what I'm saying? Like from way back. But when I went and started my explorations into music, the folks that I talked to played on jazz records, played on soul records, and they never talked about it as a genre. They talked about it as the music. This broad, nebulous term to describe this energy that passes and flows between different spaces. But the other thing I think a lot about, I still consider myself a jazz cat, but I think of jazz less as a constricted genre and more of an attitude, a way to approach life, a way to move through spaces. So, thank you. I heard a snap. Another question that's kind of interesting is about performance and engagement of the music. We were talking about this, Sam, earlier. Like, how do you feel that music in general contributes to community engagement and a sense of unity? Like, one thing we did not mention is like Jazz in the Alley, which for many years was so crucial and really intertwined a lot of sort of music, community engagement, visual art, because those murals were so crucial to identifying what it was to be like Black in Chicago in that moment. But yeah, even more broadly, like I met you, Sam, I don't know if you remember this, at Connect 4, when you were like fresh off the highway many years ago. I'm sure he doesn't remember.
Yes.
But this was a long time ago. The first time I met you, you were performing, and you were talking about just getting here and being excited to be here, and that excitement made everybody there excited.
You want to speak to that, Sam? Wow. That's kind of.
I took you back.
Yeah. Thank you. I often see that room, right? Because they've gone through various stages and spaces. But I often see that room and I think about when I first came to Chicago and really getting that aha, like, oh wow. When I tell my story about coming to Chicago, I always talk about how I came for one thing and I got way more than I bargained for. And yes, in the best way possible. One of those ways was, I came on a full scholarship to play lead trumpet in the jazz band, and I felt like that's my job, so I'm doing that, all right? I'm also a singer, but nobody at the school knows that I sing because it's not while I'm there, so I was like, I'll be a trumpet player by day and a singer by night. But what's so much a part of the experience of being an artist in a new city is the journey to exploring and finding where the vibe is, you know what I'm saying? Finding where the other artists are, finding where the stages are, and finding where your tribe and your village is, right? And kind of, being open to that. And so, for this event, it was busting. And this is the first big open mic event I had gone to, and this cemented like yes, I'm here. Yes, this is where I need to be. And if we're talking about progression, even, I was just mentioning, I just launched an app that centralizes open mics and jam sessions throughout Greater Chicago, so even Elmhurst. And this is a tool that I want to be used for newcomers to the city, also newcomers to the scene. If they're growing up in the city, but now they're trying to just get out and be an artist. But also veterans and people who are putting events together. There's a calendar view, there's a list view, there's also a map view so you can see, where things are located. And this is a free app. It's under my brand name, Shybrations. And you can download it today. It's iOS and Android available. But without this tool, there's still a cool journey, but we're now in 2024. We have to use technology to help propel us forward and to help us on a socio-economical level as well. So we're helping us spend less money trying and going different places and being able to have a tool that tells us exactly what we're going to and who will be there, what will be happening. Kind of makes it a little easier. So thank you for sharing that. I don't remember meeting you there. No, I shouldn't say like that. Because they come out. But it was so long ago that I don't remember the connections that I made there, but it was very much the first milestone of being in Chicago and being in the city.
And that's the thing. No. My voice, I'm not one text.
No, it's true. I can't. My voice. It's an instrument. No, I was gonna say I don't even know if we even said anything but what's up. But I feel like I have a little bit of a gift in the sense that I can tell when someone's having a moment, and my tape recorder is on for that moment. You know what I mean? Like I can give you another example. So I was and we're going to go into education. This is why we're transitioning real quick. I did an after-school program at the Harold Washington Library downtown for a number of years called U-Media. It's still in existence. Right, y'all know. And so they had this performance space, like a lyricist loft, or what we call it, and folks performed and stretched out and tried out their chops. And among the people who were there, No Name, I'm still in contact with today, Chance, who I'm still in contact with today, watching them perform and work themselves out as teenagers, as an adult who's at that point, we won't talk about it, but I was considerably older than them. And there was one particular performance that he did at Leaders, right? And I remember it was raining, pouring rain, it was like October, and I'm just a little mentor person, standing outside, watching inside, watching the excitement and the buzz, and all the people on the street in the rain. So, and I knew that it could happen, and I was just so, and I'm getting emotional, not because of the moment, but many years later, Chance and I were talking, and he read my book aloud to me where I talk about that moment. And it's like, I know I was watching like that. So I guess what I'm talking about, this is a transition into a point, because one thing that I've been so blessed in Chicago is to be part of like this, not just this artist community, but this community of artists that pour into the next generation of artists. So I want to talk, and there's even some folks here who I know have taught, and they're powerful in their own right, and it's a beautiful continuity of things, but the question was kind of how has music education programs in general, and just art education maybe more broadly, contributed to how rich this community in Chicago is, because I know people, everywhere I go around the world, people talk about our arts and culture and music as something that we proud of.
Yeah. No, it's actually, I found it hard to explain. I was doing a talk, and one of the questions was, why has Chicago produced so many great artists? And I just had to think about, and I heard somebody say Chicago's a friendly town. But I had to think about, like, the resources that we have around us that are constantly active. We have outlets that we, gallery openings and musical places, but like famous photographer like Tony Smith is easily approachable. You can find a Tony Smith, you can find the Chaz. I mean, these cats, look, there's I can't think his name. There's Lamar Gay right here. And it's like easy accessible, and I think about the many outlets that we had from the early house music days, where honestly I was introduced to a lifestyle via the music box. Like this was fashion, this was the LGBTQ communities at their fullest. But when it came to that music, when it came to that sweat moment, that we were looking at faces. This was a life in a strobe light, and I think that was really impactful to a kid who was really looking for outlets outside of his own neighborhood. And so to get on that train at 10 o'clock at night to go down to the music box that opened at 11, and I get to party till 6 in the morning, like, that's life, y'all. This is a 16-year-old, and I did that till I was almost 30. But I mean, like, there's just so much that I think our city, and I've never seen the moment where there was a sort of a standoff moment where artists were not open to doing things. In fact, a lot of the work that I see artists doing today are in welcoming. I speak of Dorian Sylvain, who invites the entire community to come out and paint this mural that means something to everybody in that community. And I think that those are automatic moves for us. It goes without a doubt. It's just the way that we work. I've been impressed by another community, which is a design community. And I grew up in that for a very long time. A Gorilla Truck Show was some of my earliest exhibitions, And unfortunately, I was the only black person in those events, but this kind of I don't know if I need to call it a movement, because it seems so automatic to people like me and the people that I surround myself with. It's not a problem. Well, if anybody knows Martin Currier, I really get to know Martin Currier. But that's the larger community. But for most artists, you can reach out to one of your friends who can put you in contact with another. And for me to be a teacher working I'm also an assistant professor at UIC. I also feel like I have to hold on to this sort of open door policy to know more about me and my practice and how I do something, or how I can help that student get to the next level in their practice.
So, I'll talk about. I want to say something, Ayana, about media. But if I forget it, just remind me. 'Cause I'm gonna answer your question first. So, my papa he taught sociology in a lot of CPS schools, and he taught at the university level as well. And some of my first, like I was introduced to jazz through the blues, and some of my first, the first records that I owned that were mine were Smithsonian folkways. If anybody knows, I hope you know what that is. But if you don't, like Smithsonian folkways was like Smithsonian created it to as a kind of heritage project to publish like hence the name folk records, folk music, and also like but just like traditional music that was regional. So if you wasn't there, you wasn't gonna hear it, especially in that time. So no YouTube, no none of that type of shit, And that music kind of, and this is when I was like 12 or 13, and I think since then I've probably collected maybe like, in between records and tapes and CDs, I've probably collected 20,000 items. But that, listening to that, it was, so that was like, Smithsonian was all, the folkways was all like Alan Lomax and like, the music of the Appalachia, Deep South, field hollers and stuff like that. And it really turned my ear on to listening to something different, and that's where jazz kind of opens you up into jazz, because that's where I learned about like Lightning Hopkins and like Howlin' Wolf and things like that, and I followed that same kind of upward, or maybe it's like this way, not necessarily upward, it's like a more linear type of path, that journey that music follows as it goes further into the future. But that music, it's really, it has informed me to this day, because it's like, it's what I look for in the weave of everyday life, just like as a musician myself, but also as a person who just likes to listen to music. I listen to that like homemade, I kind of did it myself type of vibe that you listen for. I kind of want to go back to a lot of performances too, because when I think about all the records and tapes that I've collected, like when I die, nobody's gonna want it. You know what I'm saying? And really live music is the most sustainable way to listen to music or enjoy music. We're not pressing up mad CDs, we're not pressing up mad vinyl. Like printing and doing all this stuff is harmful. Because just like in my case, bro, my kids, like if I have them, they're not gonna want no big ass sheets of plastic. I can already imagine, that's how I got the folkways records. I got them running on the track. I said, no, let me see what these are. How do you play them? But like live performance too, like we have a rich culture of live performance too. We got the jazz festival. We have chosen few. We got everything. I think as the music goes more digital, I think we're losing some of the music goes more digital, and the spaces become less and less, and that's about capitalism. That's a whole nother thing to talk about. There are less spaces for people to go and be independent and have movements, because media was a movement that was like subsidized by the city. There's never, I don't think I've really seen anything like that since. Like Ayana was saying, media was mostly based on, like, it was grounded in hip hop and in poetry, but it was jazz and the feeling that it gave, because like I said, I don't think jazz, I listen to so much music in the last 10 years that like genre is kind of obscure to me now, so jazz kind of to me is no longer like, it doesn't fit in the constraints of a certain set of scales, or certain instruments, it's like a feeling, you know. It's like, you know, you can walk with jazz, you know, you can run with jazz, you can exercise with jazz. So what was happening there was she's describing that feeling that just almost made her cry in front of all the people that was jazz. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't, you know, it's like, just like I said before, it's like jazz has like, and I don't think like any other type of music like jazz has really permeated every different style of popular music today. You know, there's this pervasive idea that everything and nothing at the same time is jazz. Every single type of popular music, from like the stuff that's being made that's still very acoustic, and the stuff that's being made that's hyper electronic. You know, almost AI influenced. You know, like it can't escape jazz. Like no type of popular music can escape jazz. I think I got touched.
Expression and moments of expression, the opportunity to express. You know, this is rooted in Black American expression. You know, being able to have a space to just express, and that is a moment. You know, just think about all the times. I mean, there wasn't the technology of today. Back then, when Coltrane was making this record, you know, all those jazz greats from then. Think about, like, imagine if we could be a fly on the wall in those rooms where they were just having moments of expression, you know, and there wasn't an audience in front of them, and they weren't presenting anything new, or they weren't trying to figure it out with this sub that's here, who may not be hitting the drums right, but they're in the room with their family, and they're just having a moment together. That's what it's all about. That's how we lean on each other to get by at times, you know. And bringing that into the public space, that's how we spread the gift, you know, inviting people to be a part of this moment and letting you know that you are a part of this moment. And because of that, you leave happy and grateful that you came, or that you were invited, or, you know, whatever. And I think that's just the magic that we're looking for ultimately when we're talking about live performance. That is the magic. That's the best word to explain the magic. You know, creative moments.
Norman, you were saying about why, or when you go out of town and people are like, they're like inflamed with the love of like Chicago culture, and you said like Chicago's a friendly city. It is a friendly city, but it's like a real city, which is why I think we got so many like we got, you know, like I said, the AACM. If you're not familiar, like get familiar. Like the AACM has been training musicians and like sheltering musicians for the last like 70 years. Art Ensemble of Chicago, Elzhar, like them are legends who like really in the rest of the world. You go to Europe, you tell people that they know about, you know. You really go around the States, you know, you'll find a head every 1 out of 5, you know, which is like, I don't know why that is. I don't know, it bothers me. It does bother me, but I think Chicago too is a city where like, it's a real city. It's like, it's cold as hell, like 7 months out of the year. So like, nobody got time to play, you know. That's why it's like an outpost. Like, I think Detroit is also an outpost too, like, in this whole kind of Midwest for real music, you know. And I think Chicago, just like Detroit, has been kind of like, in the name of greed, has been kind of stripped away those foundations that we had, like a lot of the record labels that put out a lot of music that Norman listened to in the music box, those labels used to be in Chicago, but now they're in Europe, you know, because they couldn't survive here in this climate anymore, not the literal climate, but the economic climate. Like, so, I think like Chicago is a city where people put their head down. You know, it's not New York City. You don't get rewarded for showing your ass. You know, that's why we have people like. I think of Elmhurst because I just missed the Elmhurst show the other night, but who's one of my favorite. Like he's a legend. Like he's a real legend. He really got his own thing. And he's also like, if you go look at the liner notes of your favorite jazz recordings, it's on there. You hear his drums, you know. But he's a person who I feel like has not been getting his due shine up until recently, you know. Which I think is a tragedy. I think as a community of musicians, maybe someone will agree with me. I think we almost need to gatekeep what we're doing. Because it's like it's hard today too, because it's like the moment a thing comes out that's like relatively like obscure or new, it's automatically like absorbed by the greater culture, whatever that may mean. And there's already a copy of it within 48 hours. But it's just like, I don't know, that's kind of all I want to say. It's a tough city. We're not impressed by much. Because it's like, well, what is that? You know what I'm saying? We did it all already, and it's kind of like, sometimes we don't have the industry, which I think like, is a real thing that's kind of failing our institutions in a way are failing us, by not, setting up the proper PPP for us to get what we need to get. You feel me? So I just wanted to add to that point.
Shout out Bonnie.
So I wanted to make sure to leave time for questions because I feel percolation coming from this area over here. I hear peanut gallery up front here, so I know that there might be a couple of questions here, but in the meantime, as people formulate, there's no pressure. And Bonnie will help pass the mic. I did want to ask Norman super quick, because we haven't really touched on this. This isn't so much about the exhibition, more about sort of the overarching music culture intertwinedness that this talk is supposed to be. But I wanted to ask you, because so much of the show is exactly that, sort of what the mindset was behind that. If you haven't walked through the show, so you can sort of listen to music that accompanies the solo show, but then also, if you walk into the performing house, you see, and you use this handy booklet, you can kind of see some of the musical inspirations behind the pieces that were curated for that show as well. So can you talk about why you wanted that to be a part of this exhibition? And then any questions, please.
Yeah, no, it's the whole show kind of happened at the same time. So really, the consideration to the house was really looking at my design studies, my design history studies, you know, my knowing of iconic figures in the design world, and thinking about this sacred house as a moment of modernity, and how there were some missing parts in this modernity, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if there was a collaboration between Mr. Lee Vanderbilt and the Chicago South Side community? I mean, like literally, I'm thinking that this is probably something Mies would have wanted, maybe. But it's, you know, it's my show, so. But, you know, really, I think I was imagining deeply how to reverse this, like, decolonize these moments in modernity, and really think about how this house would look dope as hell if there was, like, black folks in here, you know, and these really clean lines would be sparked by, you know, fishnet, pantyhose, you know. Thank you, Summer. And so I think that was a moment of really just trying to reimagine a moment in time. And then this time inside the museum was me thinking about a love supreme of my own, a time to sort of dip away in a room and sort of think about some objects and things that would pay homage to all the jazz musicians that have influenced all of our lives, but also, you know, thinking about the materiality and sort of working through some ideas that I've had for a long time, and how that sort of objectifying that becomes a love supreme for me. Yeah, so I got a little bit of downtime to play and say some things that I wanted to say in this show. Mostly in the materials that I'm familiar with, but I was really thinking about instruments. I was thinking about African influences. I was thinking about labor and work and sort of, you know, I love working with a lathe, so I got to turn some pieces, and I got to, you know, hone in on some things that I've just been wanting to try and do. And thank you, Elmhurst Art Museum, for the push, for the time to concentrate and to sort of reflect on where I want to go with my work. I'm thankful to the people that I got to work with throughout this process. This is, you know, this work that I do, it takes a team of really beautiful people to make it happen, and I'm really thankful.
And so are we. We're thankful too, brother.
To have so many committed people. That love this work as much as I do. And there's such an amazing exchange that happens inside of my studio. It's usually when we're not working, there's lunchtime. And we get to share ideas and thoughts and aspirations. And there's a number of, I'm a crybaby, so just so that this is not, I cry at every talk I do, so please don't pay any mind, but like, it's kind of things really about the family that I might be kicking it with at the party. There's this black joy that happens when we get to communicate around imagining spaces, imagining new objects and new opportunities that are accessible by us, made by us, and these are real rich times that we get to do this, which is not often, but you know, when it happens, it's such a beautiful thing. When you walk into the Currency Exchange Cafe and oh my God. And that music is playing and spirits are flowing. It's like going to church, y'all. I don't know if y'all get the feeling, but the Holy Ghost is above. I'm gonna stop there. Thank you guys.
See, that wasn't my fault. No, you know what? I want to again thank you, Norman. Me too. The joke is, anytime you got me on the piano, you know it's about to go down. Capricorn. I taught myself how to feel. It's amazing. Highly recommend it. It's amazing.
Highly recommended. Everybody should cry.
Yeah, let it out. But anyway, questions, comments, any for either Sam or Chaz or Norman or myself?
Curse words.
Anybody raise your hand?
Don't be shy.
Y'all just like my students, boy. Y'all like me.
This is a question for like all of you. In Chicago, where is your favorite place to be immersed in culture currently?
Ooh.
Currently, it's Bronzeville Winery. The art, vinyl, the food, the bar is just everything is thoughtfully put together, and the atmosphere is consistent. You know, shout out to Eric Williams, he's done a great job with him and his team, and it's revolutionary in that area. There was one moment that he mentioned where an older and elderly couple came to eat during their first month, and they thanked him, and they were crying. They were saying, "This is our first time we were able to actually walk to a fine dining restaurant in our neighborhood." And so, yeah, shout out to everybody. It was so many people. Check it out, yeah.
Yeah, Bronzeville Winery.
It must be got cutting onions on the table. They over there crying. I would say anywhere from June to September to like mid-September. Anywhere between. I mean, like, I ain't even gonna get out there. Anywhere between 67th Street Beach and Rainbow Beach. Like at any time, like you can oscillate between any spot right there at any time between those times. I would also say the Post. Does anybody know the Post?
The Post, yeah.
The Post is no longer, but hopefully we get it back. The Post was like a real.
Veterans Hall, right?
Yeah, it's a club on top of a veterans hall. Strange. It's on top of VFW, but it's got the best sound system in the city. You want to go hear dance music, you want to go face the speaker and not feel like somebody be slamming pans by your ears. Like you want to hear good sound system by good, like real OGs who played that music that Norman grew up on. Like that's when you go to the Post if it ever opens back up. But it's a real. You know, it's tons of other clubs, but the Post was like, the Post was doing something before it closed. It was really bringing that feeling back. Small spot, you know, like get a capacity real quick. So if you don't make it, you just don't make it. But yeah, my main thing with June, September, 67th, and all the way back to the rainbow. That's the only thing.
Real quick on the Post, so we covered that for Vocalo, talking about the history. There's a real good write-up on the website, if you Google it, about sort of the history of that place. It's interesting because it actually speaks a larger conversation about liquor licenses in Chicago and entertainment licenses in Chicago and how it's out of reach for a lot of people who really are very talented curators and cultural space makers. So, yeah. And what do they say? They actually did a little like data information about how few liquor licenses actually have been given on the South Side versus other neighborhoods. That's another conversation for another day. I mean, real talk, it's
criminal.
sus. Very sus.
I say, so most recently, I'd say over the summer, I really enjoyed Kenwood Gardens over behind Dorchester. It's really kind of a off-the-chain little spot. If you don't know it, you don't know it, but you actually do find it. Celeste Alexander is one of the best DJs in Chicago, alongside Dwayne Powell, and they just light it up every time. So that's an amazing outlet. I also agree the Bronxville Winery is really nice to walk into. Mesler has become a real hangout spot. So there's a few spaces on the south side that are really worth catering to. I just love dancing, and so to be able to go and dance outdoors to a great DJ. We have a few moments behind the Southside Community Cultural Center where we might have a concert here and there. That's also a great outlet. Right on the beach, exactly. But we're working on some new spots. So if anybody wants to add to that, let us know.
So I'm kind of going to cheat a little bit off of Chaz's answer because he stole my answer. But what I will say is 63rd Street Beach, so I'll extend it up a little bit further. What I love about 63rd Street Beach is those drummers, right? Which has such a long history that make me feel a real certain way. Be by that water and hear those drums. It reminds me of when I was in Cape Coast, Ghana in a lot of ways. Really heavy. But also, and this probably tracks because I'm a nerd, Woodson Regional Library. I mean, that's such an amazing, right? I mean, the people there are amazing, and they have some really cool programming there, but more than anything else, it's such an asset to the community. It really is. And every time I go there, I'm so happy that they're there and they're so engaged in this keeping of the heritage of the area. It's really important. There's a lot of really important papers and stuff there too. So
we recently lost Richard Hunt, and he was a hero of mine. And I wonder if you had any interactions with him or encounter.
I personally, I can't say I knew Richard extremely well, but we are attached. So the mother of my children's father worked for Richard Hunt's studio the moment he graduated from college. So years and years ago, so I met him years and years ago. And then I, as of recent 2-3 years ago, got to visit his studio. And we went out to lunch, and he's such a gentleman. For somebody who works so hard, he really appreciates life and takes care of everybody as though they were his daughter. And so I felt really good in his presence, and his work has always been really inspiring to me. So yeah, thank you.
mine is really weird and of the moment, but the first time I really experienced him talking about his work, there's two things. I'm a big Ebony Jet nerd also. So like the first time was like in person, was visiting the old Johnson Publishing building. When you walked in, had this wood paneling, and one of his works was like cantilevered kind of off of the wall. And it was speaking of modernity and speaking of the black aesthetic influence on modernity. That building was that. And so to see that as being, this is the first thing you see when you walk in those doors, was breathtaking. So you dial it back. I have many old Ebony magazines. And so that picture, the photo, is also in a 26-page spread where they're talking about the Johnson building when it first opened up there at 800 odd South Michigan. So then I remember on Facebook, this is super recent, actually, not long before he passed, like maybe a month and a half around Christmas, something like that. We're Facebook friends, whatever. But so he was in a chat, and somebody was asking about that piece and what happened to that piece, and he was saying he wasn't sure where the piece was. And I said, I actually know where the piece was because Theaster Gates got a lot of that art, and he had staged that piece at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis, and I saw it, so I knew he had it in his possession. So I said, guess what, Richard? Chat. And he was like, thank you so much for adding to saying that. It was just like, I was just like so flabbergasted that on the internet, you know, I could give something to somebody who had given so much to our city, and then I found out.
Thanks. I guess my question has to do with some of your products of Chicago Public Schools, and what could the schools be doing more of to support kids who are interested in music or maybe don't have opportunities and could be.
And design.
And the arts. And design, yes.
One way that could make it more economical for working artists in Chicago, if there are more opportunities to teach, and it's just a part of the culture of working artists where they're teaching, and it helps in so many ways. It's a win-win in so many ways for the institutions they are at, for them as artists to have more income, for them to get inspired by youngsters and to feel validated by the institutions that they're working in, but also for the students to be able to get inspiration from artists that are in their city and that feel very much in reach because they're closer in age. There's a better relationship that can be garnered from that. So I think this is the question. I think the best way is to find a way to build a better bridge between working artists and make it just a part of the culture. Part of the culture. One big thing about Chicago that that separates us from other big cities, or it's two things. We don't have as much industry, but we have so many artists. We're bursting into single artists. We got so many artists, not enough stages, not enough work. Nowadays, all these grants are like, we've had an overwhelming amount of applications for this grant. Like, yeah, we got a lot of artists here that need grants. So we need to find out more ways to make it more economical to be an artist living in this space with the lack of industry. And it's not more industry, it's actually just getting creative with what's already here. Just starting. Those problems.
I think the question is a little, like, it's really not what the schools should be doing. Like, I think we as artists and young older people, we really need to take a firm stance on the futures of our youth because they all we got. And we really need to make our voices be heard so that policy is people are not shaped by policy, and policy is shaped by people.
I guess it died on me, but yeah, that's one of the biggest things we need to do. Yeah, better. Yeah, we really need to take a firm stance on our youth, because they're in a dire situation right now, like across the globe. There's a bit of a disconnect, just like what Sam was just saying. There needs to be efforts to get people in schools who have a little bit of the same trajectory as these kids that are coming up, going into middle school, coming out of high school. And there needs to be options for them that don't involve, that are not all centered around money, or them having to have money to get to a higher place, or to get further in life. We need to have I remember I went to Norman's high school, and there was kind of like talks about kind of vitalizing the shop classes, or possibly teaching the shop class. So those are things that need to come back, because if those things come back, we can have much of a tighter grasp on our whole industry as a whole. And I'm talking about the whole country. You know, because if we teach these kids like how to learn to do things, how to learn to build things, that mitigates so much drama that happens. You know, and so much downtime where that drama happens.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, I think there was a point when a lot of the public schools were moving away from vocational education. And what I will say is vocational education offers something, I mean, because, yeah, okay, preparatory school is what it is. But it offers you not just an alternative, but what bothered me about it is that it was framed in a way that made work with your hands somehow hierarchically less than, right? You know what I'm saying? So I think bringing back the emphasis on that could literally change the trajectory of our country.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of what I've been pushing for in my class, I think my colleagues appreciate it. But a lot of what I've been thinking about is how the city can become more of our classrooms. Why are we sitting in this box of a space trying to learn what's going on in the outside world, and really trying to get these students to see how a designer works, how an architect works on a daily basis, what a musician has to go through with their calendar because they have so many sets to make a living. I mean, I think all of these are true ways of learning, and then actually working alongside those people as, I hate the word apprentices, but it's a real thing. It's a real way to learn, and so I feel like that is one way, but also like these trades and moments don't necessarily need to wait till college. Like, why aren't we teaching kids these things at an elementary level? Why aren't we, this should be something they have they've already sewn a sweater by the time they're in third grade. Like these things, and I don't mean that we all need to be Waldorf people, but I do feel like there's a way in which we use our hands to do things, and it shapes our minds in other ways.
You reminded me, it's so funny because you know how there's like the joke that a lot of classes you take in high school you don't ever use in real life. You know what I use? Home economics. I'm not saying I'm just saying.
I can use anybody so understand.
Right? I took shop class, I took jewelry class, I took classes and I learned a lot of things that were applicable and changed the way that I see the world in a very tactile way. Yeah, so I know we want to do one more question because, what? Did they answer?
This is a bit of a comment that kind of piggybacks on what we're talking about with education, and I think that we, number one, have to recognize that the arts were removed for a very intentional reason from our curriculum, and I think it was pretty nefarious, but again, another conversation for another day. But I think that there are other institutions that are really doing it right, and I know that UMedia has come up a couple of times today, and for people who aren't familiar with UMedia, I just was hoping that somebody could put a little more light on that, because I think the Chicago Public Libraries does a great job in terms of filling some of those gaps. AECM was brought up, gave out free music classes for decades in the South Shore neighborhood. But because UMedia came up, I was hoping somebody could just talk about that a little bit more. We need these kind of other islands to receive our creative education from sometimes.
So UMedia, I can talk about it but I want you to talk about your experience. I think that's great opportunity to talk about both sides of it. But so I was hired as a mentor, and came out of something called the Digital Youth Network from DePaul University, and that was primarily a media literacy kind of after school, in school program. And media was sort of built off of the concept that there needed to be spaces to kind of connect, kind of hang out, and then ultimately geek out, meaning engage in work play, sort of in arts and media. And so we created really like low barriers of entry in these spaces to where kids would just come to this cool place to come after school, but will wind up like learning and engaging with people from all over the city. And I mean, my little thing that I was doing was U-Media Radio. So we taught people how to use recorders and stuff, and then we did music appreciation, we're making beats and stuff like that. So it was really wholesome. But what I loved was the only adults allowed in the space were the mentors themselves and the librarians, which meant it was y'all's space and you were safe. You know what I'm saying? Which I think was very unique. But what was also very interesting is we talked about some of the celebrities that are now well-known people who were just teenage kids who were in that space. What was also very interesting is I'm 10 years older than all of them, and so I would be among my artist friends telling them, no, really, for real, these kids are super talented. It's like, yeah, whatever, you just love your kids. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, they really have something special. And it was, Brother Mike was a huge part of lyrics. I mean, he put that thing together. So I want to make sure to give credit to Brother Mike Hopkins and all of the mentors, because I think that space lives on through, the way that it was when it started out, lives on through each subsequent generation. Yeah, it's amazing to see it.
Yeah, I think it needs to go back to that original model.
Yeah, it's different.
Because like if you put a bunch of kids together and you give them a task, they'll figure it out on their own. Like I think too that's another thing. It's like we don't give the youth enough credit. Because we know more than them, but they're smarter than us. They're growing up like,
say that again.
Yeah, we know more, but they're smarter. Like my little brother, he get on my nerves. He's much smarter than me, and he's much more, like he takes from me, but he's like, especially the younger generations coming up, they're much more empathetic than we are. And they're much more in tune with each other, and each other's like irregularities or idiosyncrasies or whatever, and I don't think they get enough credit for that. I think I think youth media and other and things like AACM just need to be like squared, like they need to be in there needs to be a system like that in every single library. But then again, we go into a subject that's like we want it, but we're not getting it because of the nefariousness. That's a good word. That's a good word. Like we want it, but we're not getting it because there's ulterior motives that are working against our own well-being, which is just, I'm only saying it to emphasize that we need to pay attention, and we need to get those who aren't paying attention to pay attention, to really be cognizant with our votes, with our voices, who we're standing behind, who we're standing in front of. I think media, I haven't been there since like, I don't know what goes on in media today, but I'm sure it's different, because it was like I said, media was like, yeah, like I don't even remember there being no adults at media, yeah, and media kept me out of so much trouble, like just being there. I used to remember like leaving there and being like, time to get home, because it'd be late, and I'm like, I just stayed, but there's no more time to get into into anything.
there's only time for that, and you were exhausted by the end of it. That's what I remember. That he would work me in that groove, and then it would let me down. And I think a lot of people really benefited from that. But that's another thing too. We need to keep our grasp on things like that. I think UMedia matured, and the institution around it didn't mature with it. It didn't follow suit, or it wasn't passed down.
I wanted to make one comment when you say the adults. I was blessed. Brother Mike was one of my connections when I used to do the poetry thing at the Velvet Lounge with the Astor Gates and Avery. It was called Speakeasy. And so through that, I had a chance to photograph them, meet with them. And as an instructor, I would bring my students over to UMedia, and I could stay because I was an instructor. They had me go sit in the corner over there while the teens could do their art. And to make it justified with the school system, I would say we're going to spend time at the library. So we would go tour the library, read some books, then go downstairs, and they would do their music, their art, their poetry. And it was a wonderful, safe space. So I'm glad you all brought that up again. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
We want to hear the music.
I appreciate each and every last one of you for coming out. I'm not going to cry. But thank you so much. Thank you for our panelists and our moderator.
That's really what I was going to say, except not thanks to me, but thanks to you, Norman and Chaz and Sam for, putting so much of your heart and soul in everything you're doing, because it clearly translates into the work that you all respectively do. That's it. We've got music coming up very shortly. I want to also thank everybody for coming out. I see people from all over the diaspora, creative Chicagoland. So thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you all for being such a great audience. We do have a jazz performance from the Elmhurst University Jazz Combo. I did want to tell you about a couple of things that are coming up here at the museum. There is a tour, a curator's tour of the Lee's House of the McCormick House Reimagined, and that will be on March 23rd. So if you'd like to come back for that, you are welcome to. And then also there's an evening of jazz with Corey Wilkes that will be here.
That's so funny.
And then this next weekend, our family day activity is musical Valentine's, and so if there's a family day activity, we invite you all to come, bring your families, and make Valentine's in response to the sounds and sights in the exhibition. So it's a wonderful opportunity for that. And then just thanks again to our sponsors for this event, and I will turn it over to the Elmhurst University Jazz Combo. Welcome to stay. I'm sorry I didn't get your names, young men, but thank you for being here. And thank you all for coming.
Yeah.